It's the final scene of judgment on the wicked. The aftermath of a large battle is an eerie spectacle, the field covered with the mangled bodies of the fallen, the moaning of the badly wounded filling the air, the rasping of crows and ravens as they circle in the sky overhead, and at the periphery of the carnage, scavenging dogs. It's a scene to remember and disturb a man's sleep forever. Now, it may be hard for us to comprehend why God has to visit such terrible judgment on the earth, but a cursory glance at the escalating figures for abortions, the massive increase of perversion legalized and protected by governments throughout the world, gender confusion encouraged in schools, transhumanism, the melding of humanity and technology, the so-called WHO, the World Health Organization, that wants to force medical treatments on the rest of us, globalism and the drive to dominate the world and to steal everything in sight. These alone should be sufficient to convince us that this world deserves judgment. Now, these are general attacks on all of humanity, inspired by Satan, who hates the image of God in us. And there are specific attacks on the church and on the Jewish people. Not only lawless acts of anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, but legalized Jew hatred, with the boycotting and sanctioning of Israeli produce, known as the BDS movement, and the hatred of the corrupt and politicized UN, United Nations, which last year issued 15 anti-Israel measures compared to 13 against the rest of the world combined, as though Israel deserves more censure than the entire world. Is it in Israel where entire Christian villages are being butchered? No, it's Nigeria. Is it in Israel where Christians are being killed and churches destroyed? No, that's India. Is it in Israel where non-Jews are being either killed or only allowed to live as second-class citizens? No, this is the plight of non-Muslims in most of the Islamic countries. Is it Israel that has declared true Christianity to be the greatest enemy of the state and only churches controlled by the government are permitted? No, that's China. And we could go on and on and on. Satan is at war against Christians and Jews, because Satan is at war against God himself. And the only way he can get at God is to attack the Christians and the Jews, because Christians represent Jesus himself, Satan's conqueror, and Jews have the answer to triggering the return of Jesus when they recognize his messiahship and pray for his return. For now, Hydra, the deceiving serpent, is still coiled around this world and spreading lies. And Ophiuchus continues to wrestle with serpents. The battle to obliterate the identity of the Jews and enslave the rest of us continues. But the field of judgment awaits the final curtain, and the players who presently feel so secure in their mansions and guarded retreats and privileged positions will find no hiding place from the Lion of Judah. Here is the final constellation, Corvus. The name of Corvus in the Dendera zodiac is Herna, which means breaking up or failing. That is to say, this scene represents the breaking up of the enemy, the fall of evil. Bullinger notes that there are 9 major stars within this constellation, and 9 is the number of judgment. A coincidence? Maybe. The bright star in the eye is called Al-Khibar, and that means joining together. But that word is made clearer if we trace its origin back to the Hebrew Khibar, which means accursed. This star represents the curse inflicted on the evildoers. Now, the star in the right wing here, this star is called Al-Goreb. And Al-Goreb comes from the Hebrew Orev, which means simply raven. And a third star is called Mincha Al-Gorab, meaning the raven tearing to pieces. A more dreadful scene could not be imagined. and it would defy description. But Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, was given words. Therefore prophesy against them all these words, and say unto them, The Lord will roar from on high, and utter his voice from his holy habitation. He will roar mightily against his fold. He will give a shout as those who tread the grapes, against all the inhabitants of the earth. A noise will come to the ends of the earth, for the Lord has a controversy with the nations. He will plead his case with all flesh. He will give those who are wicked to the sword, says the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, Behold, disaster shall go forth from nation to nation, and a great whirlwind shall be raised up from the farthest parts of the earth. And at that day the slain of the Lord shall be from one end of the earth even to the other end of the earth. They shall not be lamented or gathered or buried. They shall become refuse on the ground. Jeremiah 25 verse 30 following. We should have known that this would happen. God warned us many times. Previous generations were judged. Why should we be spared? Are we special? But most importantly of all, what degree of horror was the loving God wanting to spare us that prompted him to send his only Son to be abused, humiliated, and crucified, even being forsaken by his own Father? What horror of great darkness had he seen? Nevertheless, all who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved. Romans 10, verse 13. Now I'll conclude with an excerpt from a poem by the English Christian poet William Cowper. Come then, and added to thy many crowns, receive yet one, the crown of all the earth. Thou who alone art worthy, it was thine by an ancient covenant, ere nature's birth, and thou hast made it thine by purchase since, and overpaid its value by thy blood. Thy saints proclaim thee King, and in their hearts thy title is engraven with a pen dipped in the fountain of eternal love. Thy saints proclaim thee King, and thy delay gives courage to their foes, who, could they see the dawn of thy last advent, long desired, would creep into the bowels of the hills and flee for safety to the falling rocks. Come then, and added to thy many crowns, receive yet one, as radiant as the rest, due to thy last and most effectual work, thy word fulfilled, the conquest of a world.